as you can see, we are here for the master's degree in adult and higher education and the graduate certificate in instructional design. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about how those programs correspond with each other. So I wanted to start off with a little bit about our program history because we are currently in our 21st cohort of the master's degree. And so the program has been around for a number of years, and it originally started as a hybrid program where students did some of their work online and then they would come to campus and take some classes, or would go to an on-site location for some classes. And in 2018, really the faculty got together and said, how are we best serving our students and what do our students need? And thinking about the population of students that we are most typically serving, which are working adults and working professionals, we thought, we really need to pivot this program into an online format. And so that's why the program is now run through OSU eCampus, completely online, completely asynchronous, meaning there is no specific time you have to log in and participate in your courses. As long as you're meeting the deadlines, as long as you're meeting the requirements of the course, that you could do your work at 3 a.m. and you can do your work at 3 p.m. There is no expectation, which also aligns much better with our working adults and also just the population knowing that not everyone's schedules align at the exact same time. So we are entering into our 22nd cohort of the master's degree, which will begin fall 2023. And then the instructional design certificate that was created in 2020. So we'll be entering our 4th cohort of the instructional design certificate in fall 2023. And that program was it's an offshoot of our master's degree, because we looked at our master's degree and we thought we've got a lot of technology and a lot of instructional design components within the certificate. And so it only made sense that we had we have this first part of our master's degree is literally just the certificate of instructional design. And I can show you how those intersect here in just a minute. So as you're thinking about, are these programs right for me? Is there one path that would lead me to one certain place or the other? I want to really make sure that I give a clear picture of who our students are, because our students are all of you. Like, there is no set path that a student has to take 2 of these degrees, and there's no set path that a student has to follow after they graduate from these programs. That said, there's a lot of ways in which these programs can help you depending on the path in which you want to go. So I've mentioned previously that our students are traditionally working professionals. So oftentimes our students are working full-time. They've got other obligations, whether it's family, whether it's other professional obligations, personal obligations. Those are really common traits of our students and something that we have built our program around. And then our students also come from a variety of career fields. So students are coming from healthcare fields, they're coming from business, they're coming from nonprofit, tech. We have higher education professionals that are coming into the field and wanting to move up as well. And so that's why I think it's important to just demonstrate the diversity of this program, because it doesn't have that specific path that you have to come from a certain place to get this degree. And that's why I also think it really helps with the cohort of the program, because you're all coming at it from different perspectives, and it really helps to add a lot of robust conversations into the classroom. So many times our students are looking to either advance their careers, or they may be in a career spot where they have to get a master's degree or a certification in order to help make them more qualified for further positions or further advancement. Or they're at a place where they're just looking for a career change. They're ready to pivot. And I would say that's probably more common than what I'm seeing in the instructional design field, is that we have a lot of you who are kind of tired of teaching. and even if you're not tired of teaching, you're looking to become a better teacher or a better instructor. And so that's what the program is really focused. The program is really focusing on adult learners and helping them to better engage with learning material, whether that's behind the scenes as an instructional designer, if that's in front of people, or if that's something like an onboarding specialist or onboarding occupation or human resources and training and development. And so that ties really well into this next slide here. There we go, about where our career outcomes can take us. And so I think one of the most obvious ones would be instructional designers. That's really clear just based on the certificate that we offer. And it also is encompassed within the master's degree, although it isn't as blatantly stated as instructional design. And so instructional designers, those who are looking at they're wanting to become e-learning specialists or instructional designers, really thinking about designing and developing content and experiences for others who might be doing the teaching of those experiences. Training and development is really common for our students as well. Alexis will be joining us in a minute. She is an onboarding specialist right now, and so she helps new employees get acclimated to their field and they're properly trained for their roles. And so really thinks about how are the best ways to educate people as they come into my career path and to my employer. There's program coordinators, so people who are both overseeing programs, managing programs, and also thinking about how those programs grow and how to assess those programs. That aligns really well with what we provide. And then for those of you higher ed folks, looking at if you're wanting to become administrators or advisors, it helps to kind of move within the fields of higher education. Though I will state that we are not a specific student affairs program. That is not our forte. Ours is more on training and development and thinking about adult learners and how they work and how they operate. And I had mentioned instructors as well. So we do have those two different paths. Instructors who maybe have been in the classroom for a while and are looking to pivot out of the classroom to help other instructors, or they are looking to enhance their education and what they offer to their students and make a better learning environment for their students and learning opportunities. So to kind of give you an overview of the curriculum of the programs, I'm going to start here just with kind of a snapshot. These are all of the classes, and there's on the second slide here, there'll be the rest of the master's courses. So anything that is highlighted in the fall, winter, spring, and summer terms, that kind of orangish coral color, those are classes that are both in the certificate and the master's degree. So the certificate is 20 credits total. It's 4 terms. And so you do 5 credits per term and you're done by summer term. I should also clarify that our program is on the quarter system. And so we're 10-week courses plus a finals week. And so a lot of you might be used to a semester school where it's 16 weeks. So ours are much faster. So that's why we also have a lot of scaffolding within our program, because we recognize 10 weeks is a short period of time to try to put a lot of information into it. So the certificate is 20 credits. The master's degree is a full 45 credits. And what you'll see, especially for the first year of the program, is within these first couple terms, is that you have this 4-credit content course with a 1-credit application-based course, a technology course. So we really try to help those courses correspond when possible. And they really are a great way for you to learn the theory of the material we're teaching, but then also have this application piece of it. And I'll go into the specific courses here in just a minute. So the certificate students, you finish your first 4 terms and your 20 credits and you're good and move on your way. The master's students, you'll actually have an extra class in the summer. So you will have a little bit of a bump in the summer term. And we do that because of, for financial aid purposes, because you can use financial aid for both of these programs, but we also do it for, to make sure that you can get out within the 7 terms. And a lot of times we've found that people's workloads maybe are a little bit lighter in the summer, but you might completely disagree with me on that. But I can guarantee you that people have done the heavier summer term, and they've been fine getting through it. So going on to the master's degree, if you finish the second year here, that would be 3 additional terms for the master's. And that's what you'll really find in the second year is it becomes a lot more experiential in nature, meaning you are doing a lot more application-based learning. You're applying everything that you've learned in the first year through the internship and the capstone. You'll still have a 4-credit content course throughout each of the terms, but it really does, the second year kind of takes on a different feel than the first year, just because of the way that we're linking in those project and capstone courses. So you might be thinking, oh, can I start the certificate and switch into the master's degree? Absolutely. That's really common, especially as students are thinking I'm not sure if they're kind of just I want to test this out. I want to see if this is right for me. Absolutely. Go ahead and get started with that by starting with a certificate. And then by the 3rd term, I'll be reaching out to all of you to be hey, if you're ready to switch over to the master's, here's the way to do it. It's a pretty seamless switch. We have a number of students do that every year. If you're like me, kind of commitment phobic, it helps me to wrap my brain around that too. Okay, so just to go into a little bit more of the classes that are available, I'm just going to do some highlights here. But once again, reiterating that year 1 is really where that certificate and the master's degree you're both in those classes together. And you're starting off the courses with this adult learning and development class, which is your introductory theory course about thinking how adults learn, how they process information, how they grow, and how they develop. And so I think one of my favorite things about this class is that you get to start connecting the dots, because you probably know some of this information, but you haven't had the vocabulary or the knowledge behind it. And so I think it's always such a fun class to see people kind of like have those like aha moments in as they're learning about theory. And then the instructional technology series. So that's that 4-part series, 1 credit course. And those start in the fall. And those are the ones I was specifically saying they're scaffolded, because there's a lot of content that we can cover with technology courses. And so there is no expectation that you have a lot of technical knowledge coming into the program. We start pretty basic. We think about, we're looking at universal design, backward design. We're looking at typography. We're looking at imagery, and just thinking about how our users are interacting with the materials that were provided. So equity in our program is embedded throughout all of our coursework, but I would say specifically in the technology components, equity is in the form of accessibility. So we're really thinking of our users and how our users are engaging with the material we're providing them. And then the second term is really focusing more on video and video content. And so video creation, video editing. And so that's where you'll be introduced to, you'll use Kaltura, you'll use Camtasia, but get introduced to that. And that kind of also stems over a little bit into the 3rd term of the program. And then by the 4th term of the program, you're taking all of the knowledge that you've gathered and you're putting it into the frame of an LMS, which ours is a learning management system. Ours is Canvas. And so you'll start actually developing a learning experience in the Canvas shell by the time you're done with the program. So for those who are doing the certificate, that's where you'll get some components for your portfolio. They may not be fully developed, but you have the tools to actually develop them further if you wish, but you have the framework if that's what you would just want to, like, if that's what you're hoping for, is to have that framework. That's for sure what you're going to get from this program. The needs assessment course, that one is in the 2nd term of the program. And sometimes I get questions from people wondering why they need to do the needs assessment, especially if they are interested in instructional design. And I would have to say that every instructional designer that I speak with has commented about how needs assessment is a critical course that they need, critical component of their job. So it's really looking for areas of growth and opportunity, and really highlighting different areas of research within a particular field. And one of the neat things about this program is that these programs are really meant to be applied directly into the workplace if you're in that setting. So if you're working, you're more than welcome to apply directly all of these projects that you're doing. Find a way to make it make sense for your workplace, because we want to make it tangible for you, and a way for you can do something better within, or to do something with the work that you're already doing to make it meaningful. Another cool thing about like the needs assessment class specifically is that you're gathering data and you're processing that data, but then you turn around in the instructional technology paired course and you actually represent that data graphically. So we try to make opportunities where those 2 classes can kind of work off of each other. And then the instructional design course, that's where you're learning the methods and models specific to instructional design. And so that is applying a backward design, a process. You're looking into instructional design processes such as ADDIE, developing a logic model that allows you really to successfully develop the components of a course or a learning activity. And then, so that kind of wraps up just some highlights from our first year. And then the master students go on into that year 2. And so one of the classes that I would like to mention would be program evaluation. I find this really especially helpful for those who are interested in like program coordination, is really thinking about and making sure that you're gaining an understanding of the various methods of evaluation and assessment. So you can apply that to either a current field of your work or a relative field. If you don't have a workplace in which you would like to apply these tools, you're more than welcome to think about it in the realm of where you would like to go or what you would like to do with it. And then we have the leadership course. And that's where you're really looking at your different leadership practices and understanding the difference between management and leadership. And then as part of that, you're also developing a diversity statement and a leadership portfolio. And we have this capstone and internship, which I'm going to go into next here, because that's a huge component of the 2nd year of the program. And so internship can be started really at any time. I find that most people start it in the second year, but that doesn't mean it has to be started. And I think that's one of the neat things too about the program is it's very variable as to what works for you. And if an opportunity comes up and you want to start your internship as early as the first year, let's do it. Let's go for it. We're really supportive of that. So the internship is really meant to be practical and really focusing on developing the skills that you've learned in the first year of the program. And you can really be flexible with where you want to take your internship. Some of you might want to do something completely different than you're currently doing, than your current role, and that's fine. Some of you are like, no, I like what I'm doing. I just want to be able to advance, or I want new skills. Absolutely fine. You just can't do it as part of your job description. It has to be something that's maybe an outside project or something that's with the support of a supervisor that can help you manage that internship project. And I think one of the things that, like, I was working full time when I did my my master's degree, and I remember being kind of grumbly when I had to do an internship. Honestly, it was like the most rewarding experience of my graduate program because it forced me to do something that I would not have done otherwise. And so I really encourage you as you think about your internships to think about how you can challenge yourself in new directions and find different things that might be appealing to you, because it's what better way to test drive a job than to do an internship and you get to play the student card and say that, you know, I have to do it because I'm a student, and it kind of works that way. I also want to highlight one of our really more popular internships that has been established, and we have this really wonderful partnership with OSU eCampus. And so they have actually developed an internship for some of our students to be able to do a couple of instructional design internships each term. So typically they hire one or two of our current students to work with their instructional designers and get hands-on working experience to go beyond what they've learned in our classes and actually apply that directly into an actual workplace setting. So I think that's also been really, really popular with our students who want to go into instructional design. And I would also say with the internship, we're also like, you don't have to just do one thing as your internship. This can be, you can do 2 or 3 internships, and we're supportive of that. We want to make sure it makes the most sense for you. Your capstone is really an opportunity for you to be the subject matter expert and the developer of this capstone learning experience. So it's a 3-part series. And then the first part of it, you are really ideating, you're thinking about what your idea is going to be. Your second part of it is you're developing this project or this idea. And then the third part is you're defending your project by the use of the things that you've learned throughout this program. And so that really can come across in various formats. And once again, that's why I really like that our program has people that are working in all these different industries, because a capstone project is going to look very different for every single one of you. And so some students are like, I work in higher ed, I want to create a course, I want to create a very, more traditional learning experience in a classroom. Other people are like, I work in onboarding, I want to create an onboarding experience for my new employees. So some people take their needs assessment and they find out they take what was the outcome of their needs assessment and they actually create one of the solutions. Other students have taken the shell of their course that they started and they build it out into a full-on learning experience. So it's really up to you how you want to take that and what the direction you want to go with it, as long as it turns into some sort of learning experience in some capacity. All right, so this is who our faculty are. And sorry, there's a lot of text on this page. So Dr. Becky Crandall, she's our professor of practice, and she teaches a fair number of courses within the master's and certificate program. She is also probably most notably the major professor for the master's degree students in the second year. Becky she leads everybody through the capstone experience. Dr. Dolly Wynn, so she's on the call today, and Dolly is the program chair and our assistant professor. Most commonly, Dolly has taught the program evaluation course in our program. Dr. Tanisha Tevis, she's an associate professor. She has most commonly taught the leadership course. Dr. Crisp, she's a professor, and she has most commonly taught our needs assessment course. And then Dr. Charlie Potter will be a visiting professor next year, and Dr. Potter will be teaching the organization and theory course. She's teaching the needs assessment course next year, and I think the leadership course, if I recall. Yeah, I think those are the 3 that she's teaching. And then myself, I am a program lead. So I'm kind of the program coordinator throughout any of the, throughout the whole program. If you have questions about just logistics, registration, any just questions about getting started with the program, or if you're panicking and need help, I'm a great person to reach out to. You'll hear from me a lot. And so I serve as an advisor for our certificate students, and I'm advisor throughout the rest of the whole program for our master's degree students, but I'm primarily serving. I interact with you a lot more in the first year, because Dr. Crandall, you'll interact with her a lot more in the second year. So there's we kind of tag team between where you are in the stages of our program. And then one of the things that I think is so awesome about our program is that we actually have instructional designers teaching our technology and instructional design courses. So Christine Scott, who works for OSU eCampus, she teaches the technology series. She just redeveloped the entire series. And so we're really making sure that it's staying up to date and making sure that the technologies you're learning are up to date. Like before, as an example, we had Zoom interactions and how to really navigate those. Well, that was all pre-pandemic. Y'all know how to use Zoom at this point. So we made sure to make updates to our program so it really makes sense to you and your needs and what you're feeling and needing at the moment. And then we also have George Reese, who's also an instructional designer for another institution. He teaches the instructional design class, and he's the one that, and he's taught for our program for years and has also bringing a lot of wonderful experience, and also redeveloped that instructional design course just recently. So you might be thinking about professional development and what does this mean and how do you take the next steps? You get all the learning, what do you do with it, right? And so one of the things that we do is we offer quarterly professional development panels. And so I will, you'll be hearing from me on a quarterly basis about hey, this term's professional development panel is focusing on corporate instructional design. This one's focusing on centers for teaching and learning. This one's focusing on cover letter, resume, and portfolio building. And so I try to offer a session every term where I bring in experts from the field, where you can have interactions with them and just to learn different areas that you may not have thought about for your career options. We have the Charles Carpenter lectures. So this is probably more geared toward our community college and higher ed, community college and overall higher education folks. But if you are interested in that, we bring us a prominent researcher or scholar to our Portland Center, and we host a session. We host a lecture every year about relevant issues related to community colleges. We have internships and experiential learning, which for those of you in the masters, you get a lot of that. And then we have participation in online conferences. And so there's a number of conferences that allow virtual attendees, and either they're very reduced cost or free. And so this year I promoted one about the Northwest eLearn, and it was wonderful. It was so much better than what I could have provided even just from one of our panels, because you had this variety of panels to attend, which you could choose from, and it was free. So I really made sure to promote that to our students, and I'll make sure that you're all aware of those kind of opportunities. And then there's just networking and community building with your cohort. I know it seems that you're in an online bubble and you're working on your work and you're not interacting with people, but I would say every single year I've heard from students who are like, oh, I found a couple of people that I really interact with consistently throughout the program. We just happen to be paired together in the first class, or we tried to build these opportunities through discussions, or you just kind of gravitate toward different people within the program and reach out to them and use each other for support. And that's really common. And I think it's really good for our cohort, so you don't feel so isolated, especially if you're in an online environment working. All right, y'all, I am going to give myself a little bit of a break, and I'm going to turn this over to Alexis. And Alexis is a recent graduate. She graduated in 2022. And she can tell you a little bit more about her experiences in the program, and she'll be here for our Q&A at the end. But after graduating, she moved into a position as a training and onboarding specialist. And so Alexis, feel free to jump into that and share any of the things that you would like to and your outcomes from the program. But I also asked her to address some specific questions for us all. So what brought you to the program? What was it like to balance school, work, and life? I know you had a lot of ups and downs throughout the program, and moves and all sorts of things. And then how has this program helped you professionally? And what is one piece of advice you have for students considering these programs? So I'm going to turn to you, Alexis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me, and welcome everyone. So I'm going to say good afternoon or almost good evening. I'm actually located in Boston, Massachusetts. So I actually did this program from the East Coast. So I'll talk a little bit about that experience as well. But as Lindsay mentioned, I'm the training and onboarding specialist for Triumvirate Environmental. So what that basically means is on one hand, I help facilitate the entire program. It's a week-long orientation where we get our new hires acclimated to various parts of the organization and to their job. We are an environmental health and safety organization. So a lot of the training that we do is related to compliance and regulatory training. So we really focus and want to make sure that our orientation is extremely in depth, at the risk of not providing too much information to avoid, information overload. So how do you balance that? And so I was brought on to really help with the strategic aspect of, making sure it's an engaging and thoughtful experience, but also making sure that people are getting all the information that they need. So my role is, like I said, not only to facilitate, but I also work in various different softwares and programs to build online e-learning trainings as resources and just again as regulatory for regulatory compliance. So that's a little bit about my job. But I'll dive into the first question. So what brought you to the adult and higher education program? So when I was looking into kind of making a career shift, I got my bachelor's in human resources, and I was the internship coordinator at the New England Aquarium in Boston. And a part of my role was to facilitate professional development sessions. So a lot of training and development around how to, grow as a student and how to look for postgraduate jobs, things like that. And so I was really interested in the facilitation piece of things, but also how are these students learning? How are we measuring that success? How are we getting feedback for these training programs? And so I really wanted to kind of dive deeper into that and just kind of make sure that I was making it an engaging experience. So that's where I started. And then I applied to this program. I actually remember talking with Lindsay on the phone and writing all my notes down and attending a session like this and kind of thinking about, what is it that I'm looking for in a curriculum? And I knew I wanted something that was practical and hands-on and could provide me like that piece of information and learning, but also I wanted to kind of dive more into adult learning theory. So I just felt like this program kind of had everything that I was really looking for. So then because of the pandemic, I ended up going and switching to a different job. And I was still in human resources, but I was able to kind of use this experience and this program in my role. So it kind of worked out in that way. Next question, what was it like balancing school and work and life? So I was working full time. I was also going to school, and then I also had a second job. So I was working two jobs and going to school all at the same time. So it definitely was challenging. And I think the biggest thing was like making sure that I was giving myself time to breathe. I again remember talking to Lindsay in my first year and trying to like plan out, what those 10 weeks are going to look like. And I think from a student perspective, the professors were really great about providing the information up front. And from my experience, all of this syllabus had an outlined, detailed schedule for what those 10 weeks are going to look like. So it really wasn't a shock or anything that was surprising when you were in those courses. So I was able to use that information and kind of plan out what my 10 weeks were going to look like. What days did I, focus on school? What days, what days was I going to focus on projects and things like that. And so I really was able to kind of plan out ahead. And that was because our professors were super communicative with us. When life did get in the way, as it normally does, I was also trying to be as communicative with my advisors as well as my professors, just to give them a heads up. And because of the program's flexibility, because you can really do the work, like Lindsay said, at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m., it allowed me to really be able to think about and give myself time to breathe and still live my life and have a social life and everything. So there was a level of flexibility in the program, which I really appreciated. And then how has this program helped you professionally? So there's definitely aspects of the program that have helped me in my current role. So right now I know Lindsay had mentioned Camtasia. So that's one of the big programs that I work in to build a lot of my e-learning resources. And so the instructional technology courses within the master's program were extremely beneficial because we took a deep dive into Camtasia and to other softwares, and really made sure that we had a well-rounded experience in terms of what instructional softwares are out there and instructional programs are out there. But the instructional technology series was really beneficial in getting me familiar with Camtasia, and then being able to put that specific skill on my resume, or to, tell recruiters, oh, I have experience with this specific software, was really great in terms of like finding a job, getting an interview, and then also being able to transition into a training specialist role. In terms of like the other courses that we took, the more theory-based courses, so like needs assessment and instructional strategy for adult learning, those are really helpful in terms of thinking about how I'm building programs from an adult learning theory. And it also helps me when I'm working with individuals. Sometimes I'm building trainings or building programs for individuals who don't necessarily have a adult learning background. And so it helps me guide conversation and kind of justify and explain the reasons behind, what we're implementing for specific programs or for learning strategies. So those really helped with that aspect of things. I still actually have my textbooks that we used on my desk here at work. So I, do sometimes like dive into them, and they are really helpful. So it's just kind of all around on the practical hands-on level, but then also from a strategic and theory-based level too. And then the last question. So what's one piece of advice that you would have for students considering this program? I would say, Lindsay mentioned it, but like building relationships with your cohort. You're all going through this time together, and it's definitely an experience where you can bond with people and get their feedback and get their advice on things. And the biggest thing I found was if I ever had like a question or clarification, like my cohort was always really there to kind of build me up and empower me. And so I felt really supported. And again, being someone from the East Coast that was taking this, in this program where a majority of the cohort was on the West Coast, it was nice to kind of have that support still. And we did have folks in the West Coast or on the East Coast as well. So I was able to meet people from like New York, New Jersey. So it was nice to still have those people, but regardless of where you were always able to like ask for advice or ask for feedback. And then I would just say, like, take advantage of everything. As Lindsay mentioned, there's professional development opportunities and panels. And I remember being in the program, and we would get emails frequently about internship opportunities and job opportunities that are out there. Take advantage of all of that. Throw your hat in the ring, even if you think you're not, qualified for it, or if you're still in your first year, still, go for it. I think that's the biggest thing. I was talking with my manager, and she mentioned that the thing that stuck out to her the most on my resume, especially coming into this position with no formal prior instructional design experience, my manager said that the classes that were listed on my resume under my education section, those were what stuck out to her. The fact that I had Camtasia experience, the fact that I took a needs assessment course, the fact that I took, strategy in adult learning, that's really what kind of solidified her, giving me the opportunity to interview, and then also giving me the opportunity to, get the job. So I would say take advantage, even if you think, maybe you're not qualified or whatever. Take advantage of all those opportunities, because you never know what could happen.
Fabulous. Thank you, Alexis. We very
Of
much
course.
appreciate your perspective. And Alexis,
Yeah.
if you're okay with us sticking around when we wrap up here,
Yes,
then we'll answer any questions as well. Okay. I'm going to go back and just finish up here. I only have 2 more slides, then we'll open it up to y'all. Maybe 2 or 3, I can't remember, but we'll find out. All right. So one of the big questions that we have is, that I receive a lot is, how do I pay for school, right? School's not cheap. We get it. And so I want to just kind of highlight some things that students have done in the past and just some things about our program in general. So last year's cohort, over 70% of our students received some sort of either funding for the first year, for the first couple terms, or they utilized the tuition benefit. And so funding is available. In particular, we have some funds set aside that are available for admissions, most specifically for the master's program. The certificate program, just to be honest, does have a lot less funding opportunities, but the first year of the master's program typically has a fair amount of funds that we can allocate to our students. We can't guarantee everybody's going to get something, but at least it is something that we can help out with. Financial aid is definitely available. You can use financial aid for both the certificate and the master's degree. So that's an option for you. And then I'm sure we're going to get some questions about the Oregon Public University's tuition benefit. And so yes, both the certificate and the master's program, if you are employed by Eastern Oregon, Oregon Institute of Technology, Oregon State, Portland State, Southern Oregon, University of Oregon, or Western Oregon, you can utilize that tuition benefit if you're an employee or a spouse who gives you access to that tuition remission. So if you have questions about that, I don't want to go into too much detail about it on this call because it doesn't apply to everybody, but I used it when I was a graduate student. And so if you have questions, I'm happy to reach out. We can talk offline about it a little in more detail because it's a really great deal. And it is now extended to all of the institutions that I mentioned. OSU Scholar Dollars. This is an application portal that will probably primarily be for those heading into the second year of the program because it is one giant scholarship pool where you enter one application and you get matched up to all of the scholarships. So that decisions are typically made for those in like May or June. And so that would be more of an opportunity. We've got some scholarships available for first year students. Scholar Dollars is a great opportunity for second year students. And then outside grants and scholarships can also be applied to these programs as well. So to wrap us up here, I'm going to just talk about application details, and our priority deadline is June 15th, 2023 this year. So it's coming up here in the next month or so. Oh my gosh, we're almost in May. So yeah, the next month and a half. And so the requirements to apply is that we'll have you submit all of your transcripts from any work you've completed at the collegiate level. And we ask that you have a 3.0 GPA. That said, if your bachelor's degree GPA or your bachelor's degree GPA is what we're typically looking at. If you have a prior master's degree or a doctoral degree, we'll use the highest one that you've received. But if your GPA falls below that 3.0, it's not an automatic no. It's going to be just more of an opportunity for you and I to have a conversation because we review all of our applications holistically, meaning we're not just looking for a GPA if you're in or out. For me, it would be a conversation about what are your end goals and can our program get you to those end goals? And that's what we're looking for overall from applicants. Like, we want to make sure this is a good match for you because graduate school is expensive. We don't want to put you in a program that you're not going to be getting anything out of, or it's not going to lead you to the path that you want. So whether or not you have the 3.0 threshold, if you want to have that conversation, please touch base with me outside of this program or outside of this call, and I'm happy to talk to you about that. We'll have you also submit a resume or a CV, and then we have a writing sample for both of our programs. The first one addresses equity, and so we'll ask both the certificate students and the master's students to address the prompt about equity, and they're found on our website. We also have 2 prompts that we have our master's degree students submit as well. One is what's your motivation for your degree, and then the strengths and assets that you'll be bringing into the program. And then 2 letters of recommendation from master's students. And one, we'd encourage you, if you have a current employer or current supervisor or a former supervisor, having them submit one of those recommendations. We recognize you may not have direct access to any of your previous like undergraduate advisors or graduate advisors. Oftentimes there's a decent gap between your bachelor's degree and your master's degree or certificate. So we understand that. And so we're looking at maybe more professional references in this case, unless you have a good connection still with one of your previous academic references. And then we don't require any exams for the program, so there's no reason to submit them because we won't look at the scores anyway. So no need for the GRE, no need for the GMAT. And so I think, yeah, that should cover everything about our program that I can think of. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. You all have my email address since you received the email